Welcome back. So today we're going to talk about mindfulness, and we're going to talk about what mindfulness is and the benefits of mindfulness. We're also going to talk about how you can incorporate mindfulness into your everyday lives. So there's a ton of research out there that talks about mindfulness. There's articles out there, and I'm sure you've seen some stuff on Facebook that talks about mindfulness. And when we think about mindfulness, we think about things like meditation, we think about deep breathing, we think about guided imagery, and almost immediately we think, I don't have time for that. I can barely go to the bathroom by myself, let alone have a 30-minute meditation. Ain't nobody got time for that. So we're going to talk about how you can build mindfulness into your everyday life, because there's a ton of different benefits to mindfulness. And so when I think about our thoughts and I think about what mindfulness has to do with our thoughts, it makes me think about when I got Clyde. So Clyde is my half Weimaraner, half lab mix. And when he was a puppy, when we let him out into the yard, he would kind of just run all over the place. And sometimes when he went to the bathroom, he would go to the same spot. He kind of just does his little loop, and he always ends up at the same spot. And so our minds tend to be very much like a puppy. It kind of just goes all over the place. It pings back and forth. It hops around. And sometimes it can get stuck in a wheel. So it kind of just keeps going back to that same spot. And so our minds tend to be very similar to that. And so over the last few days, we talked about the impact of our thoughts on our emotions and how our emotions influence our behaviors. And we talked about how there are some ways that we can challenge those automatic thoughts. But mindfulness can be really helpful at training our thoughts. So instead of our thoughts going where it wants to go, we learn how to train our thoughts to go where we want it to go. So it's kind of like leash training a puppy. So when you put a leash on with a puppy and it's never been on a leash before, it either just sits, or the puppy kind of just takes you where it wants to go. But eventually the puppy will eventually learn how to walk beside you. And so that's what mindfulness does. Practicing mindfulness allows you to leash train your brain, allows you to leash train your thoughts. So instead of your thoughts controlling you, you learn to control your thoughts. And so when we think about mindfulness can do a whole lot of things for us. The Journal of Health Psychology found that mindfulness and practicing mindfulness daily actually decreases stress, literally. So they did research and found that mindfulness can actually decrease the level of cortisol in your blood. And so cortisol is the stress hormone that gets released when we're overwhelmed or when we're stressed. It's also a hormone that's responsible for you holding on to that extra weight, which is interesting because research has also shown that mindfulness can be helpful at supporting your weight loss goals. So how many times have we gone through a busy day and we eat our lunch and we either don't remember what we had for lunch or we don't remember what it tasted like? So mindfulness can be really helpful at us paying attention to what we're eating, and it can also be helpful when you're struggling with cravings. So there's a lot of research out there that talks about if you have a craving, sometimes it's better to give in to the craving and have a small piece of whatever you're craving versus fighting that craving. And so when you practice mindfulness when you're eating and if you're craving cheesecake and you practice mindfulness eating that cheesecake and you're mindfully tasting and savoring the taste of the cheesecake, the intensity of that craving goes down. So you're not fighting it. So mindfulness can be helpful to support you in your weight loss goals. Research has also shown that mindfulness increases self-awareness, body awareness, but it also increases regulation of your emotion and your attention. And so we talked a little bit about our thoughts leading to influencing our emotions and our emotions influencing behaviors, but practicing mindfulness can actually give you control over your emotions and your attention. Mindfulness has also been shown to increase compassion. And so oftentimes when we're overwhelmed or when we're stressed, we tend to be cranky and irritable with others. And so mindfulness can be a way to increase compassion. Another thing that mindfulness does is, if you're anything like me, when you go to sleep, I have the tendency to list all the things that I have to get done the next day. I mentally go through my to-do list, and sometimes I go through my to-do list for the next day, the next week, and sometimes the next 6 months. And so mindfulness can be helpful at slowing those thoughts down and getting unstuck. So kind of like how Clyde goes to the same spot when he goes to the bathroom, mindfulness is about releasing that. So I let go of that attachment to that to-do list so that it increases quality sleep. So we know all the benefits for mindfulness, and we know that practicing mindfulness can help us control our thoughts instead of our thoughts controlling us. So what is mindfulness? So to illustrate mindfulness, I have a pan. I know it's like super random, but this is a great visual for what mindfulness is. So this is a Teflon pan, and what happens when we cook on Teflon? We cook something and it kind of slides off. And that's exactly what mindfulness is. It's about being aware of our thoughts, but not getting attached to them. It's about allowing our thoughts to slide off. So it's about practicing to encourage our minds to be Teflon. And so when we practice mindfulness, it's important to remember it's not about the activity. It's not about the activity that you're doing. It's not about the meditation. It's not about, the guided imagery. It's not about lighting a candle and sitting on the floor and saying a chant. Mindfulness is really about paying attention to what and how you do something. So really, we can build that into whatever we do in our day. But when we're practicing mindfulness, we are practicing what and how we do something. So when we're doing something, we want to make sure that we're observing one mindfully. So we're paying attention to one thing at a time. So it's not about multitasking. If you're washing the dishes, you're just washing the dishes. You're paying attention to the soap, you're paying attention to the dish, you're paying attention to the temperature of the water. You're fully engaged in that activity. You're also describing non-judgmentally. So we're letting go of the judgment. Remember, our thoughts are like Teflon. We let things slide. And so we're not getting attached to a thought, and we're also not judgmental. So we're not saying when we're doing an activity, we're doing it wrong, or this is bad, or this is good. So when I think about mindfulness, another image that comes to my mind is thinking about leaves floating down a stream. So when a leaf flows down the stream, you kind of just watch the leaf. And if you gently pick up the leaf, or if you grab the leaf, it's about placing the leaf back without placing judgment. It's not saying I shouldn't have picked up that leaf, I shouldn't have held onto it, or I held onto it too long. It's just saying in your head, okay, I have this leaf, I'm going to put it back. So it's kind of like that, where you let go of the judgment and you let go of that self-talk, that judgmental self-talk. And then you're going to participate effectively. So you're going to fully participate in an event or in an activity, and you're going to do it in a way that lines up with your values, and you're going to do it in a way that lines up with your life. Because when we think about mindfulness, it's not very helpful to engage in mindfulness if it's going to stress you out. So if you're going to tell yourself, okay, this is just another thing I have to do to better myself, and then while you're meditating, you're feeling like you're neglecting your kids, that's not being effective. So it's about finding ways that you can build this into your life. So you participate effectively, you describe non-judgmentally, and you observe one mindfully. So I challenge you today to think about what are some activities in your everyday life that you can practice mindfulness. Is it washing dishes? Is it doing your makeup? Is it playing with your kids? There are a lot of activities that you can do to build that skill and teach your thoughts to go where you want it to go. That's it for today. I will talk to you again tomorrow.